profit in your home service business using a simple 5 number formula without being a numbers person. My name is Phil Risher, and this is Paul Maskill. Thanks so much for joining us today live. If you could hit the chat real quick while people are coming in, we'll give them a couple minutes. Where are you calling in from? What's your business? Give us some um, information about your business. It helps us a lot as we're talking to make sure that we craft the messages. And also throughout the conversation, if you have questions, I know probably when you registered for this, you can ask questions, but if you have questions specifically when it comes to profitability, put it in the chat. Um, cool. While people are coming in, Paul, do you mind sharing a little bit about you, how you know how to get 20% profit and like how you got to this point?
Yeah, thanks, Phil. Excited for the conversation. Like Phil said, if you guys have any questions, post them in the chat. We want this as conversational as possible. But my background, so I grew up around the trades. My dad owned his own hardwood floor business. I grew up in Michigan. Him and everybody he worked with said, don't do this. Don't go into the trades. Go work for somebody else. Go get a good college degree so you don't have to use your, body the entire time. And he was a one man band. So, and all the people that he, worked on job sites with were one man bands. So they were kind of miserable, burned out. So I got a finance degree. I moved to Chicago, 2007. I watched 2008 happen. And I worked at a big bank and I watched all these people lose their job. At the time, they were like these really old people. They were like 40 and 50 years old, which is me now. But I was like, everyone said that was so secure. And I realized it wasn't secure at all.
Mm,
Just because you're really running your own business and you have one client, if that client fires you, you're out of business. And I saw that happen to thousands of people in Chicago after 2008. So, I made the decision that I was going to quit my job. Similar to you, Phil, I traveled around for a little bit. So I backpacked through South America for a couple months
nice.
in 2010, and then I ended up in Raleigh, North Carolina. I've been here since then. So I've been here for almost 16 years. I've owned and sold 4 different businesses since then. I made the vow to myself, I'm not going to work for somebody else. I rather do something I enjoy and make less money than sit in a cubicle and be miserable working at a big corporation. So most recently, I spent like the last 6 or 7 years in the trades. I was a partner in a landscaping business. And then after that, I was a partner in an electrical service company. I was the business operations finance person. My partner was the electrician. He had the license. We scaled that up. He ended up buying me out about 2 years ago. And what I realized at the time was every business that we scaled and sold, I was the CFO for. I just didn't realize it. I was just using numbers to guide these companies. And, the further I got into it and really just talking to so many home service business owners, that this is a massive problem, that we're really good at delivering service. We're really good at hiring people. We're really good at getting 5-star reviews and doing all this stuff. But most people in the trades are, and business in general, because most people don't start their business because they're good at numbers. They start it because they have a skill, they have a trade, they have a craft that they're really good at. And it turns into a business before you know it. So that's what I do. So I've been doing the last 2 years, helping home service business owners build a financially healthy company, helping them create consistent positive cash flow, so that way they can achieve the goals they set when they started their business.
Awesome. Yeah, the one thing that I really appreciate about you is that you also worked at a home service business, part owner in a home service business. And same thing with me. So we can come at it from both angles, which is really nice to have those purview. Cool. So I want to hit on this real quick. Something has come up and I won't be able to stay on live. Any chance there'll be a recording? Yes, Taylor, there will be a recording of this that will be sent out. No worries at all. Um, all right, so we just finished out 2025. People probably got their P&L hopefully from their bookkeeper, and it said that they made all this profit, but they have no money in their bank account. What does that mean?
Yeah, well, it means a lot of things. I mean, one, sometimes the bookkeepers aren't doing everything they're supposed to either. So I tell everybody you need 3 really good accounting finance professionals. You need a really good bookkeeper who understands the trade so that you have good data to make good decisions. You need a really good CPA to help you with your taxes, and then you need a really good CFO, fractional CFO, to help guide the company. But a lot, I mean, not to get too far into the weeds, but there's a lot of money leaving companies that doesn't hit the P&L, or maybe you're owed a lot of money through accounts receivable.
Mm,
It's showing that you made money in your P&L, but it's, you're basically lending money for free to somebody else, i.e. your customer, and you didn't get in the business to be a bank. So there's a lot of, like, I was looking at a company today. They have 15 vehicles for like 5 people in the field. So when you're making payments on those vehicles, the all of the principal pay down on those 15 vehicles is not hitting your P&L, right? So that's hitting your balance sheet. So I don't want to get like too far into the weeds on that,
Got it.
but there's so many things that happen. How long does it take to get paid? Are you taking owner's draws? A lot of times, depending on your tax advice, you're going to be taking draws instead of a salary or both. An owner's draw isn't going to hit your P&L either. So there's just a lot of different things that go on. What we try to do is simplify financials as much as possible to really empower our owners, our clients, that, even though you didn't start this business because you love numbers and you don't love numbers, at the end of the day, you own the business. And most of our clients, most home service business owners in general, almost all of their wealth is tied up in their business. So if that's the case, we should probably be a little bit better at staying on top of these things and making sure that we are actually building wealth and achieving our future goals.
Yeah. I think that there's one thing to see profit on your QuickBooks, but there's another thing to see it in your bank account. And we want you to see it in your bank account and feel like you're actually making a profit. So, can you break down? We told people there's going to be these 5 core drivers of profit, and I want to dig into each one. But can you give us at a glance the 5 core drivers of profit? Maybe we can go one by one and break them down. However, you think would be the best way to share those with people.
Yeah, good question, Phil. So yes, I mean, that's what everyone's here for today, is how do we get 20% net profit? And like I said, we try to simplify our financials for our clients as much as possible. They get a simple one-page PDF scoreboard. It's red if it's bad, it's yellow if it's okay, it's green if it's good. And then we look at these drivers of profit. And then we also look at drivers of cash flow. And then when we figure out there's an issue, then we dig into that further, similar to what you guys do if you figure out there's an issue. So, you know, starting at the top, this isn't one of the 5 drivers, but the thing we need to track is revenue. So what is the makeup of our revenue, and what is our average ticket? How many tickets are we doing? So, obviously the money starts, you think of it as a funnel, money starts at the top, all this revenue gets dumped in, and then it's going to go, in our opinion, 5 bigger buckets. Because if you look at your P&L, what I see happen a lot, there's so many lines, it's hard to determine what's going bad, what's going good, what's working, what's not working. So the first thing we look at is cost of goods sold. So this is number one. Cost of goods sold is exactly what it says, is what does it cost to deliver the things that we are selling? In the home service world, we're mainly selling labor and material. So we're sending people out, we're sending technicians out to people's homes. They are selling their time, and then they're also selling the supplies and material that they're putting into the customer's home. So where I see a lot of home service business owners not even have this correct, Phil, is going back to the bookkeeper conversation. If you go set up a chart of accounts in QuickBooks, it's not going to put any sort of labor in cost of goods sold.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is, historically in other businesses other than home service, the only thing we're selling are tangible things. So if we own an e-commerce store or a retail store, we're selling a tangible physical good. So most home service companies, unfortunately, when I look at their P&L initially, they have all their material and supplies up there, but they don't have any labor up there. So we want to make sure our labor is part of cost of goods sold. And what do I mean by labor is all the people in the field, not the people in the office, but the people in the field, not only their labor, but their payroll tax. If you're giving them a 401k, if you're giving them health insurance, I also recommend putting workers' compensation up there, because that is a cost of employing somebody out in the field in order to deliver what we're selling. So that's number one, cost of goods sold. And
So,
we can stop there if you like.
yeah, so we did a webinar last about how to build a profitable price book, and we figured out what is a good labor rate for you to actually do based off your technician's pay. And I believe that you can use that burden rate to figure out what a good labor rate is for this.
So if you guys watch the replay, or if you need the replay, I know Phil had the
Yeah.
new flat rate folks on, Matt and Danielle, last month. They had a super simple one-page Google Sheets
Yeah.
document that you can literally just put in everything, and it'll tell you this is what you need to charge per hour if you're sending a technician, or you're sending 2 technicians, or an installer and an apprentice, whatever it might be. And we do the same thing with our clients.
Yeah.
What I see more often than not is people are like, "Oh my God, I didn't realize it's gonna cost us that much."
Yes.
So yeah, use that document so you know what do we need to charge for labor. Because if you're paying somebody $40 an hour, the cost to send them out is going to be hundreds of dollars, not $40.
Got it. Okay, so I own a remodeling company, and it's like you got your materials, for your siding or roofing, but then you also have the labor of actually doing the stuff, and that is your cost of goods sold in the
Yep. Yeah,
okay.
that's the main parts of it. There's other like ancillary things in there, like if you have to pull permits with the municipality in order to do the job, if you're renting equipment, but the main two that are driving almost all the cost of goods sold is the cost to send people out there or subcontractors. Like you said, if you're owning a remodel company, a lot of
Yeah.
times they use subcontractors. That's going to be in there. And then all
Okay.
the material and supplies.
Is there a benchmark percentage of someone should have that in relation to their revenue?
So it depends on the industry. It depends on, the mix of work that they're doing. We shoot normally cost of goods sold between 40 and 50%. So if you think about the next number is then what's our gross profit, which is revenue minus cost of goods sold equals gross profit. People probably hear all the time, you got to be at X amount gross profit. You got to be at 60%. You got to be at 50%. Every industry is a little bit different. The more like construction heavy you get, where it's more like you're doing more bid work or you're subbing stuff out, the ticket can be higher and higher. The gross profit's usually a little bit lower. But if you think about like an HVAC company, we usually shoot for like our HVAC companies, their service side, because there isn't a lot of materials and you're selling very high end knowledge that not a lot of people have. Having a good service tech that can do diagnostic work and all that, we're shooting between like 60 and 65% gross profit, which means the inverse of that would be your cost of goods sold, 35 to 40%. So the more you get into like install work, most of our, using like HVAC, they're usually targeting between like 50 and 55% gross profit on install work, just because you are selling a lot more material and you can only mark it up so much.
Yeah.
Just based on, the local market that you're in as well.
Okay, got it. So revenue comes in, you have your cost of goods sold, that gives you your gross profit. And what was the target that you said for gross profit?
So
Or
we usually shoot between 50 and 60%.
okay, so it's the inverse of that. That's right. That's what you said.
Yeah. And then the cost of goods sold will be 40 to 50%.
Got it. So get your cost of goods dialed in. That's going to essentially give you your gross profit. So that way you'll know that number. And then what's the
Yep.
next one after that?
So yeah, so then you guys probably hear sometimes people say like what happens below the line. So when you look at a P&L, you've got your revenue, we've got our cost of goods sold, that equals gross profit. And then everything below the line is really like expenses you're going to have to pay even if no revenue came into the business. If
Hmm.
nothing happened today, you're still going to be paying, and we can break these down then individually, but I like to break this down into like three categories. One is your marketing. So what are we spending in marketing and advertising? The next one is what are we spending on office payroll? So office payroll is all the people in your office that are not delivering service. Even if the phone doesn't ring today, we're still paying them to show up. And then the other bucket, the third bucket, is all of our other overhead. So rent, utilities, vehicles, software subscriptions, office supplies, everything that we're just paying on a day-to-day basis to keep the business running. So those are kind of the three other buckets. So if you think about, talking about the five things that we need to know: revenue, cost of goods sold, those are kind of the, what's driving revenue, what's driving cost of goods sold. And then below the line is our marketing, our office payroll, and our overhead.
Okay. So if I'm hearing you right, if someone wanted 20% profit, then they could essentially work backwards and set a marketing budget of 10%, an office payroll of 10%, an overhead of 10%, that's 30%, and then go back up to cost of goods and then work back to the 100% revenue.
100%. That's exactly what we do with our clients. And thinking back to the first part of the conversation, just to give it a little bit of clarity and context for people, if you're running more of like a construction heavy business, usually you have higher tickets and you have less people in the office. So you're going to have a lower gross profit because you might only need to spend 10% on office payroll or 8% on office payroll or 5, you have less people to deliver more revenue, versus if you're running a service heavy business, you've got technicians going all over the place. You're going to need dispatchers. You're going to need more CSRs. So it really depends on where you're at. But yeah, like just super simple. If you think of, if we have 50% left over after cost of goods sold, we have our marketing, we have our payroll, our overhead. The ranges we usually shoot for our clients is marketing's usually between, if they really want to scale, 8 to 12%. With that being said, I see $8 to $10 million companies that are really good at branding They're really good at engaging. A lot of the stuff you guys do at Flash, right? They're re-engaging with their customers. They're sending emails. They're sending text messages. They're doing yard signs, and they've built a huge just goodwill within the community. They might be doing $10 million at 4% marketing, 3%
Right.
marketing. Office payroll, 10 to 12%. Companies that are scaling, it's usually on the higher end because you got to hire people before you need them full time. And then overhead, 10 to 15%. Ideally, as we scale, we get that lower and lower, and maximize the revenue based on what our overhead actually is.
Yeah. I love it. I can feel people, because me included, trying to figure out how to get those numbers in my QuickBooks and like make it all make sense. That's probably why you said you need to have a good bookkeeper that gets it, that's in alignment with this, I would imagine. So that way it's like, this is clean.
Yeah, 100%. And we don't do bookkeeping, so we just do the CFO work, but we have some good bookkeepers that we do recommend because it is so important. And usually it's at no fault of the business owner. When someone start, especially if it's a technician started business, they left their company because they wanted to go do it better. They knew they could start their own company. Before you know it, things are happening and they realize I got to do taxes. So I need someone to do my books. And while they're doing the books, they can also answer the phone and they can send out invoices. So usually we like hire somebody initially to like do a little bit of everything, right? So when we start with a foundation that's not great and we never change it, we might be running a $5 million company, but our accounting and bookkeeping still as a $500,000 company. Or maybe we just outsourced it to somebody we met at a chamber event, or we outsourced it to a general bookkeeper. My recommendation is find a bookkeeper that really understands the trades, understands your industry, and can get it done accurately, and on time and all that. So yeah, it is so important to have a good bookkeeper. Unfortunately, most business owners, not just in the trades, but it's like usually their reason for their bookkeeper is like, I don't know, because I need one. Well, why did you choose that CPA? I don't know, because I need one to do my taxes. So like, yes, we need them, but for the clients we work with, usually in the three to call it 10 to $12 million range in revenue, it's really important to have a really good bookkeeper that understands your business, understands the industry, so that way you have really good data.
Yeah, and a team that all works together. So it's not just you fighting on one end, them fighting in a different way and doesn't understand this. And I think the overarching theme is you got to have goals that people are sticking to, or some type of a budget, opposed to just, I see money in my bank account, let's just go spend it because I can do that, which is
Yeah,
pretty common.
and that's really, one of the biggest issues I see, Phil. So we did, when we're working with a potential client, we do a financial assessment just to get a similar, probably what you guys do at Flash, have an initial conversation, learn about the business, but then it's like, all right, let's get under the hood and let's see what's actually going on based on the books. And most business owners, they're going to make their decisions on, how much money's in their checking account at this point in time. It's 1018. Oh, I've got $50,000 in the bank. Cool. I can go and make that purchase. But we don't know if that money is actually ours or if it's due to our suppliers, our vendors, our credit card, or whatnot. Out of the last 70 companies, and I posted this on social media last week, out of the last 70 companies that we did financial assessments in, they have less than 1 month of expenses in the bank. That's not a good place to
That's
be.
crazy.
So not only do we need a good bookkeeper, but then we actually need to be able to take that data and actually make decisions, because we can fall in love with data and this looks great and it's pretty and we know what's going. But if we're not actually using it to make decisions, usually most business owners are then just using their emotion or their ego or their an excuse of why they did what they did. And that's usually not a great place to be when you're doing millions of dollars and you've got, 10 to 20 employees that are relying on you to run this business for more than the next month.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really that's crazy. I didn't see that stat, but that is something that, man, and I think that's like going into shoulder season for a lot of people. It just in general is like, okay, maybe I'll float it on a line of credit or something. But I think what you're saying overarching is you need a budget to generate profit, to build retained earnings, to be able to take that money and do whatever you want to reinvest back in the business. But when you're just fighting day to day based off of the money that you see in your bank account, it's very hard to scale a business when you don't know your numbers and don't have structure.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. So, I mean, every business, there is seasonality to it, some more than others. But I mean, we see it a lot that, going into shoulder season and in shoulder season, we got to dip into our line of credit or our bank, if you go in a whole 1 month, if you're negative for 1 month, it's going to take you several good months just to get out of that. And you start to get in this vicious cycle. Unfortunately, most business owners think they can sell their way out of it. It's like, oh, if we just do more revenue, we're going to solve this problem. But if the process is broken right now and today, more revenue is not going to solve that problem. So you're never be able to sell your way out of it. If you bring in more money, you're just going to have more problems. So this rap song talks about more money, more problems. It is 100% true, because if you're not profitable today, if you think about, I know you're a Dave Ramsey guy, Phil. If you think about giving a kid money, right? If they can't, or an adult, if they can't budget $100, what makes you think that if you give them $1,000, they're going to be able to budget it? If you can't, but in a business, if you can't run a profitable $1 million business, who, how are they going to run a profitable $3 million business? And if you're at 5 million right now and you're like, man, we just got to get to 7, I'm here to tell you, if you ever get to 7, you're still going to be in the same position if you don't start doing things differently. So I see that all the time, where it's just like, companies doing 4, 5, 6, $7 million and not profitable. They want to get to 10. It's like, well, let's do 5 million really profitable before we
Yeah.
actually even think about going anywhere else.
Yeah, it's so good. I was at a $3 million business and they were running 10% profit, which is not bad. But when we started to actually dial in the numbers, they went to 30%, 27% profit. And they were doing $4 million, $5 million. And it's like, this is a scalable thing. And guess what? Private equity was all over them because they're
Yeah.
like, give me that money. And I think there's a big opportunity for a lot of people to, if you want to exit your business, get the stuff clean now.
Yeah, no, because also if you do want to exit your business, they're going to look back 2 or 3 years. And if
Exactly.
you're a mess for the last 5 years and only this year you're profitable, if they are going to buy your business, they're going to buy it at a deep discount because they don't believe that this is sustainable. They're going to think something happened.
Mm.
When someone goes to look to buy a business, their belief is how you do anything is how you do everything. And if they look at your financials and either they're a mess or they don't make sense, or there's a lot of anomalies, a lot of red flags, a lot of ad backs, things that all of a sudden look rosy, they're going to be very suspicious. And then they're also going to make due diligence a lot harder because they're going to want everything. At the end of the day, the numbers don't lie. The numbers tell a story if you know how to read them. And when we can finally remove our emotion and our ego and our excuses and let our numbers, really drive the company and figure out let the numbers dictate what we need to do next, it makes it a lot easier. And like you said, if you're doing $4 million at 27%, you're clearing over $1 million a year. That's way better than being at being at $10 million at 3%. So in all the financial assessments we did, the last 70, the average net profit in the home service company and the average revenue, just to kind of give you guys context of the companies, the average revenue is $4 million. The average net profit was 3.3%. So
Oh my
no
God.
private equity is going to want to buy that. They're
No.
going to want to see that you can do this. It's repeatable. It doesn't need the owner. It doesn't need, things moving around. And that net profit, that's before, like you said, that's before things that happen on the balance sheet, whether it's owner's draws, whether it's, paying vehicle notes, stuff like that. So
Oh,
it's, it tells me that most people are really good at what they do. You can't get to $4 million by being terrible at delivering HVAC service or terrible at being you've got to have good Google reviews. You've got to have longevity. You're doing a lot of good things. You got to have people in the field. But if you're not able to achieve your personal financial goals, and our belief is we need to build this business so that you can have the life that you desired and dreamed of when you started your business. Everybody listening to this, when they started their business, they had these dreams, goals, aspirations of, I want to be making this amount of money. I want to travel this much. I want to spend this much time with my family. I want to buy real estate. I want to build wealth. And then before we know it, we're just like, we're stuck in the rat race and putting out fires every single day.
yeah, I agree. So for someone here with us or listening, what should they do out of these 5 numbers, like to get the ball rolling? Like, what's like an action item that they could take away from this?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the first thing I would do for anybody is like really look at your financial statement. Like look at your P&L, especially your P&L, and then that's going to flow into your balance sheet. Balance sheet is probably even more important, but if you don't understand your P&L, you're not going to really understand your balance sheet. So first, really just making sure what we just talked about, looking at your cost of goods sold and making sure your labor is in there, all the costs associated with your labor, all of your supplies and materials are in there. From there, you can then figure out the rest. once you have that and see where you're at. So, like I said, the average company that reaches out to us, they're at 3.3% net profit. So call it 3%. If we start to look at what's causing those issues, if the person listening today can even just build a basic dashboard of what's our cost of goods sold, what's our gross profit, what's our marketing spend, what's our office payroll, and what's our overhead, and then start to put together a model of what does it need to be to eventually get to where we want to go. Now, if you're at 3% net profit, you will not get to 20% net profit in 1 year, and that's okay. But if we can go from 3 to 7 in 2026, and then maybe next year we get to 12, and then maybe we get to 15, it's crazy how quickly you can do it, and how much clarity you have and much confidence you have when you actually have money in the bank. So if we can just start to make those baby steps and track them, when you're doing that, how can we improve office payroll? How can we improve our gross profit? How can we improve our overhead? How can we improve our revenue, right? Like maybe we're really, and you guys talk about it all the time, Phil, but our office payroll might be high because we're really bad at answering the phone and we're really bad at closing jobs. So like maybe our call booking rate's 50%. If it went to 80%, all of a sudden your office payroll is going to go way down because your office is busy all day. But if you're only booking at 50%, it's like they're busy just churning calls and churning work, but not actually churning revenue. So start to then see what's actually causing the issues of this, to start to make, the saying is you get 1% better every day, you're 37 times better at the end of the year. And that's really what it's just like, creating those habits. I think the last thing I'll say on that is Mike Michalowicz. I'm a big fan of Profit First, big fan of Mike Michalowicz. Profit is a habit. It's not an event. It's not like, oh, I was profitable. No, it's I am profitable. And it's a habit that we do every single day, just like Dave Ramsey talks about in personal finance. Whether you like him or not, he's got a process. His people follow it, and they can achieve their financial goals because they just get a little bit better every single day.
Yeah, I completely agree. Mike was on on my podcast, and it's like, profit is, you're supposed to generate profit. It's not a dirty word. It's the point of being in business. And when you can deliver great service to your clients and still make a profit as a business and have great team members, then everyone's winning. And that's what you're trying to build for. One of the questions that came up, someone submitted this, is, I'm interested in incentivizing projects for my team. It looks like a remodeling type company. I'm interested in incentivizing projects for my team, giving them goals and bonuses, and bringing them in to understand and track the numbers with management. I think the main premise is, when you look at your cost of goods sold and your labor, how do you build in bonuses? And maybe you just have to like figure out what your burden rate is and then add bonuses on top. But do you have any best practices on like that?
Yeah. So if you're owning a remodeling company, it really depends on who's getting incentivized. So there's really two different models. One is a subcontractor model, right? So subcontractors, they're going to say, hey, we're going to pay you to go do this roof. We're going to pay you X amount of dollars. I don't care how long it takes, right? Now there's a project manager in charge of that project to make sure there are no change orders. If they are, all the billing happens accordingly. If there is a change in material, how did we miss it? And then the other part of that, the other flip side of that, is if you're doing it in-house. So maybe you're a remodeling company and all of your, using that example, all your roofers are in-house labor and you're paying them on an hourly basis. So you have to start to dig into, who are we incentivizing? So if we're incentivizing, we'll call it the project manager. If we're going to incentivize the project manager, they have to know what success looks like. Most of the time, they have no clue what success looks like because the owner has no clue what success looks like. Or they're too afraid to share the numbers because they're going to think, oh man, Paul's making millions of dollars and I don't want to work for him anymore. We know that's not true. Yeah. If you are 100% transparent on the entire cost, entire revenue of a project or of a company, it's going to make your life a lot easier. So it really comes down to, how much are we willing to share with them? Because you can't get frustrated in someone's performance if you're not willing to show them what it is and what it should be. And then how do we actually get there? So if you have a project manager and he's managing projects, his number one job should be make sure every project is completed based on the gross profit target, based on how it was priced. So if it was priced at 50% gross profit and we came in at 40%, where did we drop the ball? Was there a change order that we okayed, but we never told the customer, and all of a sudden the customer's like, no, I'm not going to pay for that? Or was there a change order from the subs and the subs gave us, hey, you actually owe us $500 more? And we're like, okay, cool. Or maybe, when we estimated, we thought the material was going to be 2 grand and they were 4 grand. So figure out then there, like, where is this thing getting broken? And then what should it be? Right. So different models. Some people have their project manager and estimator being the same person. So I estimate the job and then I manage the job and then I can control the entire process. Some people have a sales slash estimator who sells it and then a project manager is going to manage it. So if a project manager is managing a project that he didn't sell, there has to be a really good, team culture that Phil sold this at 50%, but Phil's full of shit because he thought we could get this done in 2 days just to sell the job. And it took us 4 days. So now we've got to work together. That estimator now has to have an incentive. The project manager still has to have an incentive, right? So as you guys kind of start to work together, but at the end of the day, if we know what our goals are, like I said, gross profit 50%, we have to sell everything at 50% gross profit. Then we have to job cost. So after the fact, kind of post-mortem, what actually happened? Why did we not hit 50%? What do we need to do to fix it? But if we have our goal and the guy knows what the goal is, or the gal, whoever the project manager is, they should be incentivized to then what happens if I hit that goal. Now, it doesn't mean, hey, they're making 100,000. Now, how do I give them a bonus? We might have to redo their pay structure too. If a really good project manager is going to make $150,000 a year, how much of that is base compensation? And then how much of that is performance pay? Because we know, say using that example, we know if we pay him 150,000, he's going to deliver this much revenue. We're going to hit all our targets. And he needs to know that as well. Hey, you're going to make 80,000 base. You have the ability to make 70,000 on $2 million of revenue that you oversee. This is how it's going to work. We're going to have you're going to actually have a scorecard. So this is a step most people miss. If they don't have a scorecard and they don't know what success looks like or where they're at, they're going to be really frustrated. And I would be frustrated too, because it's like, Phil, you're telling me I need to get better, but I don't know what to do. And I don't know what better looks like. Then you need to review that on a regular basis, every 30 days, whatever your cadence is. And when things aren't right, then you need to collaborate with that person to figure out what went wrong. Why did we not hit our goal? Or if we did hit our goal, what did we do that was great that we need to continue to do? So it's a big picture, but yes, you need to price it in. Part of their compensation has to be performance pay base. So that way you're not getting, all of a sudden your P&L's out of whack because this person's doing really well and we didn't budget for it either.
Yeah. I think what I'm hearing from you is those numbers that you outline holistically on the business, you need to job costs, so specifically remodeling, like you got big projects. So it all lines up together and then everyone has aligned incentives, because if you get the details right, it's going to be much easier on a bigger scale. Like it all lines up, specifically in remodeling for sure, it sounds like.
For sure. Yeah. And to your point, like it's going to go all the way down to the person swinging the hammer.
Yeah.
Right. So say you are doing these remodel jobs in-house and you've got an in-house crew, they need to have incentives. They need to have performance pay to get the job done based on how it was estimated. Now, if they don't think it's possible, now that's where you have to solve the problem between the estimator and the guy swinging the hammer, right? So it's like, if the guy swinging the hammer has incentives to get this deck done in 2 days and they do get it done in 2 days, they should be compensated as well. So part of their compensation should be, hey, you're going to get a base and then you're going to get performance pay, or you're just going to get a flat performance pay. So where I see most companies get stuck with this is like they have the theory, they kind of have the outline, and then shit hits the fan with the project. And they're like, they throw all that out the window. They're like, just get it done so we can get a check from the customer and move on. And then it's like they're playing this vicious cycle, not only with their business and their numbers, but then with the expectations of their team, that they're like, well, once it goes sideways, we just need to hurry up, get this thing done and get a check, even if we lose money. And it's just like all of a sudden it's this vicious cycle that it's on to the next one, on to the next one. And you're slowly, it's death by 1,000 cuts.
Yeah. And even worse, you get into the roller coaster of like selling the next job to pay for the last job, or that whole, and then that's a
you
death
take the
spiral.
deposit. It's a whole thing.
Yeah. I do want to ask you this because you have a little bit of a contrarian take on this, and we have a unique experience together because I used to work in fleet management for home service businesses. And at the end of the year, we said, "Hey, take your tax deduction and buy some trucks with it." And, I know every year you're beating the drum of like, "Let's go out and buy some trucks. Sounds like a great idea." I know every single person here has had this encounter where they talk to their bookkeeper and they say, "Looks like we got some profit here. We need to be tax efficient and spend this money and take this deduction." Okay. Can you like explain that and then explain why that's not smart and like what that even means? Because I think there's still this big gray area out there for people.
Yeah, there is a big gray area. So if I have to write it, I do not like writing a check to the government. But if I write a check to the government, it means I actually made money. My statistics show that most people don't actually make money. So if you are having a good year, and if you're using profit first, I
If
don't
you're
work for
generating 20%, you're going to have profit, right?
yeah, if you're a $5 million company, going back to your example, $5 million company, 20% net profit, you got $1 million in profit. Maybe you send the government a couple $100,000, but you got 800 left over. Now, if you have a good CPA, and we'll get back to the original question in a
Yeah, yeah,
second, but
yeah.
if you have a good proactive tax strategist CPA, there are other ways to lower your tax bill and also build wealth at the same time. If you have a good proactive CPA that understands the tax code and why the government writes it, there's plenty of other ways that you can actually build wealth and pay less taxes instead of buying a vehicle. Now, why buying a vehicle is bad is because if you're going to go out at the end of the year because your CPA said you had a great year and you can go buy a big truck for $100,000 and we can write it off. That just like that amount doesn't come off of your tax bill. It's not like you would have owed 100,000, but you bought $100,000 truck and now you don't owe money in taxes. Now I'm not a CPA, so again, this isn't tax advice. Talk to your CPA. As a CFO, that kills your cash flow slowly. Again, death by a thousand cuts because January 1st comes, you probably, and I have the exact numbers, I could pull it up. I actually did a presentation last year for some business owners on this of what the math is. But that truck is now costing you probably $1,700 a month just in a payment. And your tax savings, I think it was like after 10 months, I think the tax savings on it was like 10 months worth of truck payments, but you're paying that truck payment for like 72 months or 84 months or
Exactly.
60 months. Buy a vehicle when you actually need it to produce cash, because then it's an asset that's producing cash. If you buy it today and you're not going to use it tomorrow, you don't need it tomorrow, it becomes a liability that sits there and you just pay it over and over and over. And I forget exactly what the numbers were, but it's over $100,000 that you're spending to save like $20,000 in taxes. So it's really just kicking the tax can down the road. It's financing your taxes in a very bad way, because the other part of that, which they won't tell you, is the way depreciation works is the reason you can do that is they call it like accelerated depreciation. So you're going to write off a good portion of the vehicle. Year one, you're going to accelerate the depreciation. The life of a vehicle based on the IRS, depending on the type of vehicle, I think it's like between like 5 and 7 years. So they're assuming you're going to use that vehicle for 7 years. But if you go sell it in 2 years, you then have to quote unquote pay back that accelerated depreciation.
Yes.
Like if you turn it in because, oh, I don't need it, or I'm going to go get another new vehicle. Well, you're going to undo the accelerated depreciation that you just took advantage of 2 years ago, because the government's assuming you're going to use that vehicle for 5 or 7 years and you used it for 2. So from a CFO cash flow standpoint, ignoring all the taxes, it's a terrible idea to have vehicles sitting around doing nothing, because that is a slow way. And again, not all the payments hit your P&L either. So you're like, where'd all my money go? Well, you have 15 vehicles. You only got five of them actually driving on the road. You've got your own vehicle. Your wife's got their own vehicle. Maybe your kids got their own vehicle. You bought your service manager a vehicle. Your warehouse guy's got a vehicle. If your vehicle is not producing cash, profit, revenue, all the things, you should not buy it. Now, if you're an owner and you drive your vehicle until it's got 100,000 miles and you go buy one, yes, your company should pay for your vehicle. However, don't be buying a brand new truck every year just to save money in taxes. If you have a good year, you follow something like a profit first, and you have a strategy, you can build a lot more wealth and have a lot less trucks sitting around in your parking lot.
Yeah. I love it. I think that's a great explanation for it. I think the question that you would want to ask is, you got 20% profit yes, how can I limit my taxes? But the simple answer is, well, go spend the money so then you don't have to pay the taxes. But don't spend the money on things that's not going to actually help you grow your
Right.
business.
Yeah. And the same thing, like I see a lot of people buy all their material at the end of the year, like, oh, we're going to stop up and lower our tax bill. Well, when you look what you're doing, you're just moving profit from one year to the other. Because if I buy $100,000 worth of material in December to use for January and February, well, then January and February, I'm not buying any material because I bought it all in December. So now those 2 months are super profitable. And you're going to do the same thing over and over and over. Like the tax man's always going to get his money. You can only kick the can down the road so much. You're either going to have a cash flow problem or a tax problem. I rather have a tax problem because that means I have money to pay them and I still have cash left over. If you have a cash flow problem, you don't have any cash. So that sucks.
Yeah. Mic drop. I love that. I got some more questions for you, but the people that are with us, if you have questions, drop them in the chat here. I mean, we've been talking about a lot of stuff. If you have specific things to you, um, I want to talk a little bit about forecasting, because I think in our space there's like goals, revenue, but actual like forecasting for like taxes and also profit. Do you have any best practices? Because we're in the beginning of the year. Like for people that say, I'm at 3 million, I want to go to 4 million. Like, okay, well, you need to know these numbers, but is there anything else that goes deeper than that?
Yeah, I would first ask them why. If you're at 3 million, you're not profitable, why do you want to go to 4 and be not profitable? You're just going to have more techs, more trucks, more headaches, and not any more money in the bank.
Okay.
So that'd be my first thing. But what I see happen most, it's January 13th at the time we're having this conversation. By the end of this month, everybody that had created like a budget,
Yeah.
they've already forgotten about it, because usually their budget is like what they want to do. It's like their goals, like, oh, I'm going to do $4 million. I'm going to hit this gross profit. I'm going to hit this net profit. And then I'm going to do all these things. By end of January, similar to New Year's resolutions, like out the window into survival mode, putting out fires, doing all those things. So my number one recommendation is you're going to set a budget, but then you're going to actually look at it every week and measure where you're at in comparison to where you want to be. So if you want to do, $3 million this year, how much is that per month? And then what do you want the profit to be per month?
Mm.
And like, again, those 5 areas, like just look at it super basic. So like, if you think about keeping, like a lot of things I equate to sports, and we need to know if we're winning or losing. We don't need to know like the tiny minute details, right? We don't need the box score of like how many targets did they have, how many deflections did they have. Like first, we just need to know who won the game. Most business owners don't know if they're winning or losing, other than how much money's in their bank account.
Yeah.
So let's create a scoreboard. That's exactly what we do for clients. So y'all can do this. What's our cost of goods sold? What's our gross revenue? Cost of goods sold equals gross profit. Marketing, office payroll, overhead. Create a scoreboard like that. Track it on a monthly basis once your books are closed. And then you'll be able to see, are we trending in the right direction? And if you've never done forecasting, projecting, just assume all 12 months are equal. I know no 12 months will ever be equal,
Yeah.
but if you do $200,000 in January, assume you're on pace to do $2.4 million. I talk to companies all the time. Like historically, they've done $5 million the last 3 years. They're like, yeah, but we're going to do 8 this year. I'm like, okay, and what's going to change? How are you going to go from 5, 5, 5, 5, 8? Like if you don't have a plan, you don't have a strategy, it's like, oh, we're changing marketing companies, or we're going to spend more money on Google. Like we don't have any money to spend on all that stuff. So like, unless you have a strategy to really get into the nitty gritty, it's not going to happen. So build out a basic scoreboard: revenue, cost of goods sold, gross profit, marketing, office payroll, overhead. If you don't want to do this, I would reach out to your bookkeeper, be like, hey, once my books are closed every month, can you just send me what these numbers are? They can do that very quickly. And then you'll at least know if we're winning or losing.
Yes.
And then from there, if you're losing in certain areas, start to look into what do we actually need to do. Where most business owners get stuck is, one, they don't do this on a regular basis, but then two, they always have an excuse of why it's not the way it should be and why it's going to change. Oh yeah. We had a bad month because this happened, but this one's going to be different. Or, oh yeah. We changed this process and now it's going to be different. But at the end of the day, I tell everybody, I had this above my desk at the old company, was your excuses only sound good to you, because we can convince ourselves every reason why we're not winning. But at the end of the day, the score doesn't lie. Whoever wins the Super Bowl this year, whoever loses it, like there's going to be a reason why they won and they lost. And when they can, get rid of the emotion and the ego and the excuses, to be like, this is exactly why we screwed up. If we can do that with our business and be humble enough and not worry about how many vans we have and what does our stuff look like on social media. If you look on social media, everybody that's telling you how great they are, don't pay attention to them. Don't chase the bright shiny objects. There's so many basic blocking and tackling things we need to do that if you do them, you will get to 20%.
Yeah. I think one of the big unlocks for me at my home service business was looking at year over year data opposed to just we want to go from 3 to 4 million. Why, what, how? It was looking at, okay, last January we did this much revenue. This January, if we want to grow at 25%, then we need to do this much revenue. And it gives us, okay, this month, right now, we got to do 25% more. So that means we need 25% more, this, and this.
Yep.
So how are we going to get that? How are we going to do that? We could increase this thing, we could do that. And it breaks it down very tactically than just throwing pie in the sky numbers out for people. And something that we focus on a lot in our business, which is like leads year over year, estimate count year over year, estimates closed year over year, revenue. All those things play into the holistic picture of how you're going to grow the business.
Yeah, and like using that example, if you want to grow 25% this January compared to last January, well, what did you do in December? Last month, December 2025, did you grow 25% from December
Yeah.
2024? If not, you're not going to,
Yeah.
odds are you're not going to grow 25% this month if you didn't do it last month, year over year. So yeah, the year over year is a very easy way. You just put two things on top. And hey, the last 6 months, we've grown 18% compared to the year before, year over year by month. Well,
Yeah.
now if we keep doing what we're doing, we will. But to your point, once we start to realize what's broken, then we dig into the next layer of things of, how many calls do we have last year to this year? How many web forms do we have last year to this year? How many of those do we actually book? What was our closing rate out on the field between service and between install? How many cancellations do we have? Once you can use the numbers, I hate to say it, but it's really simple. Like when you can just use these basic numbers, it's going to be hard to change, not because it's physically difficult, but it's going to be mentally difficult because you're going to have to do things differently than you've done in the past. You're going to have difficult. You still there?
Yeah. Have some difficult conversations.
Yeah. So if you have an office payroll that's 20%, you can't sell your way out of that. So,
That's right.
you know, you're going to have to right size your office because most people are like, well, we need all those people once we get to 10 million. It's like, yeah, but you're only at 6. So it's going to take you this many years to get to 10 and you'll never get there because you're going to run out of money before then. So,
Yeah.
so yeah, you're 100% right on that.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Paul, so much, man. Where should people go to get in touch with you, learn more about your business, and see if you might be able to help them?
Yeah, easiest way would just be go to our website. If you go to the bluecollaradvisors.com, go there and there is a pricing calculator. You can book a call. You can check out content and whatnot to get everyone close to where we want to be. So they have a financially healthy business and they're creating consistent positive cash flow.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, man. It's a really great conversation and look forward to continue the relationship.
Likewise. Thanks, Phil.
Yeah, man.